There is a moment you've felt before, even if you never named it. An animal meets your eyes, and something in you goes still. Not startled, not confused, just seen. It might be a dog softening its gaze as if it recognizes a familiar presence. A cat settling beside you without hesitation, choosing your quiete over the noise of the world. A bird pausing longer than expected, watching you not as a stranger, but as something known. These encounters are easy to dismiss if you're not paying attention. But you've noticed the pattern. That's why you're here. Because it isn't just once. It's again and again. Animals approach you with a kind of trust that feels unearned. Strays follow without fear. Your own pet reads your emotions before you speak them. Even in silence, something passes between you and them. Something wordless but undeniable. And you've questioned it. You've wondered why this keeps happening. Why they respond to you differently than they do to others. There is a sensitivity in you that doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't demand attention. But it is felt. Especially by those who live through instinct instead of explanation. Creatures that do not argue with what they sense. Creatures that lean towards safety without needing proof. So when they come to you, when they stay, when they soften in your presence, it is not random behavior. It is response. You are not imagining the difference. And once you begin to see that, the question shifts. Not why them, but what is changing in you. You can feel it already. 7 of Wands is turning upside down in your life, and something in you is growing tired of defending your own energy, while the world quietly tests your boundaries. Knight of Cups enters softly here, like a figure moving through still air carrying emotion, not as noise, but as quiet influence that reaches everything sensitive enough to feel it. And animals, they are always sensitive enough. What you are witnessing is not just their behavior. It is their response to a shift in your inner landscape. A softening, yes, but also a deepening, a kind of emotional clarity that doesn't need words to announce itself. Because animals don't wait for explanations. They read what is already present. And lately, your presence has been changing. There is something more open in you now. Even if life has been heavy, even if you've been tired, especially then, your defenses are not as rigid as they once were. Not because you've become weaker, but because you've begun to carry your strength differently. Less guarded, more grounded. And that changes how you are perceived. A dog doesn't approach you just because you are kind. It approaches because it feels something settled in you. Something that doesn't spike unpredictably. Something that doesn't threaten. A cat doesn't choose your lap just because you are available. It chooses because your stillness invites it. Because your energy doesn't demand, it allows. Even birds, creatures of distance, begin to linger. Watching, measuring. Not your appearance, but your rhythm. And what they are responding to is this. You are becoming easier to read. Not for people, perhaps, but for anything that trusts instinct over performance. Which means this isn't about animals changing. It's about you becoming more coherent within yourself. But the story does not end with comfort, because emotional openness carries its own tension. There are moments when you feel more exposed than before. Times when you sense everything more deeply, including what you wish you could ignore. The world hasn't become gentler. You've simply stopped numbing yourself to it. And animals feel that too. They don't just come closer when you are calm. They also come closer when you are quietly overwhelmed. Not to fix it, but to sit inside it with you. That's why a pet presses against you when you haven't spoken a word. Why a stray appears when your thoughts feel too heavy to carry alone. It is not intervention. It is alignment. Your emotional field is becoming something that can be entered without resistance. And in that openness, creatures that live by trust recognize a place they can rest. Still, what matters most is what this awakens in you. because their presence is not just comfort. It is a mirror. They show you how you are holding yourself, whether you are tense or at ease, whether you are scattered or centered, whether you are guarding or allowing. And this month, that mirror has become clearer. You are being shown through silent companions the exact state of your inner world, not as judgment, but as reflection. And from there, the message turns inward. What are you carrying that no longer needs to be defended? What are you feeling that no longer needs to be hidden? Because the more honest your inner state becomes, the more naturally the world around you begins to respond without needing to be told. 8 of Swords appears reversed here, and something that once felt like invisible pressure is starting to loosen like ropes slipping from your own hands rather than being cut from the outside. This is where the shift becomes undeniable, because what animals are reacting to now is not just your openness, but your gradual release from something that used to bind your energy tightly. Old tension, old self-protection, old ways of holding yourself in place so nothing could touch you too deeply. For a long time, your presence carried a kind of guardedness, not visible to everyone, but felt in the subtle edges of your energy. A quiet bracing, a readiness, a need to anticipate rather than simply exist. And animals, even when they came close, would respond to that edge. But now, something is softening in a different way. Not the softness of vulnerability alone, but the softness that comes when you stop fighting yourself, when you stop tightening around every feeling, when you allow your internal world to move without needing to control it constantly. That release changes everything. Because animals don't just sense kindness, they sense freedom. A dog approaching you now feels less resistance, less internal conflict, less noise beneath the surface. A cat resting near you doesn't feel the subtle tension that once made your stillness incomplete. Now your stillness is deeper, more genuine. Even birds cautious and distant by nature begin to linger longer. Not because you call them, but because your presence no longer pushes anything away unconsciously, which means this is less about attracting them and more about no longer repelling them. And that difference matters, because the energy you once used to hold yourself together is being reallocated. It's no longer spent on maintaining invisible defenses. It's becoming available, open. That openness is what they feel. But the story does not end with release, because when old restraints begin to fall away, something else surfaces underneath. There are moments now where you may feel unfamiliar with yourself. Not in a chaotic way, but in a quiet, disorienting way. Like stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't operate by the same internal rules anymore. And animals respond to that transition too. Sometimes with closeness, sometimes with stillness, sometimes with a kind of watchfulness, as if they are observing you reassemble yourself in real time. They are not reacting to instability. They are responding to transformation, which means this phase, this month in particular, carries a threshold energy. You are not who you were, but you are not fully settled into who you are becoming either. And in that space between identities, your presence becomes very clear to anything that lives by instinct. Because instinct doesn't get confused by transitions. It recognizes movement as truth. So when an animal pauses near you, or lingers longer than expected, or behaves differently than it once did, it is not random behavior. It is recognition of change. And once you notice that pattern, another layer opens. What you are releasing internally is not just affecting how you feel. It is shaping how you are experienced, not through effort, not through performance, but through alignment. And the more you allow that alignment to continue, the less you will need to question why the world, especially the quiet, instinctive parts of it, keeps responding to you differently. The devil reversed shows up in this shift not as fear, but as a quiet unraveling, like knots loosening in the dark, where they once held you without question, because not every animal comes closer for the same reason. Some approach you and settle immediately. Their bodies soften, their breathing slows. They rest as if they have found something they trust without needing to test it. Others become alert around you, not fearful, not aggressive, but attentive, watching, measuring something deeper than your actions. And then there are those that hesitate. They circle, they pause at a distance, as if they are sensing not just who you are now, but what is still leaving you. This is where discernment begins, because animals do not respond to your intention alone. They respond to the full field of what you carry, what is present, and what is dissolving. And right now there are layers in you that are actively being released. Old attachments, old emotional patterns, old ways of binding yourself to things that drained you slowly over time. That release is not silent. Even when you are quiet, it moves through you like a current. And animals feel that current. A dog may stay close to ground that movement, anchoring you without you even realizing it. A cat may sit just out of reach watching as if holding space while something internal shifts into place. A bird may startle more easily in your presence not because of you, but because the energy around you is in motion rather than still, which means their different reactions are not contradictions. They are reflections of different aspects of your transition. Some respond to your peace, some respond to your process, some respond to what you are letting go of. But the story does not end with their reaction, because this is not just about observation. It is about responsibility. As the bindings loosen, as the internal pressure releases, you are left with something you didn't have before: space. And space can feel unfamiliar. It can feel like silence after noise, like stillness after constant tension, like standing without leaning on anything that used to hold you in place. Animals feel that openness immediately. They move into it, around it sometimes, through it. And their presence becomes a kind of guidance, not through instruction, but through behavior. They show you what grounded energy looks like, what calm movement feels like, what it means to exist without gripping or resisting. Still, what matters most is not how they behave, but what it draws out of you. Because when you notice the difference, when you see how each animal responds in its own way, you begin to sense your own internal shifts more clearly. You start to feel where you are settled, where you are still releasing, where something is not fully aligned yet. And that awareness changes how you move through the world. Less reactive, less bound, more present. And once that awareness deepens, another layer begins to reveal itself, not just in how animals come to you, but in when they appear at all. 8 of Coins reveals itself in this rhythm, not as effort in the physical sense, but as a quiet repetition, like something being refined through small, consistent moments you might have overlooked before. Because it is not random that a stray crosses your path on the exact day your thoughts feel heavy. It is not random that a bird lingers when you are standing in between decisions. It is not random that your own pet becomes unusually attentive when you are trying to push something down instead of facing it. These are not dramatic interruptions. They are subtle alignments. And the more you look, the more you will see that these encounters follow a pattern of precision rather than chance. They appear at edges, at moments when something inside you is forming, shifting, or asking to be acknowledged. Not after the decision is made, not after the emotion has passed, but right in the middle of it, which means their presence is not just reactive, it is participatory. They enter the moment with you. A crow leaning forward, observing with that unblinking focus, as if it is witnessing something you have not fully admitted to yourself yet. A dog approaching slowly, lowering its body, bringing calm into a space where your thoughts are moving too fast. A cat appearing near your doorway, not asking for attention, but simply existing there like a marker placed at a threshold you're about to cross. And what they are doing in their own way is grounding something that could otherwise pass unnoticed. Because you have a tendency perhaps to move quickly through your own internal shifts, to feel something deeply and then step over it before it fully settles. But this month is asking something different of you. It is asking you to stay, to notice, to let each internal movement complete itself instead of being rushed into the next moment. And animals are assisting in that process not by forcing you to stop, but by becoming still enough around you that you begin to match their pace. That is their quiet work, not to guide you outwardly, but to slow you down internally. But the story does not end with awareness, because repetition, when it becomes visible, carries a question with it. Why this moment? Why this pattern? Why now? And the answer begins to take shape when you realize that you are not just experiencing these encounters. You are being trained by them, trained to recognize your own states more clearly, trained to trust subtle shifts instead of waiting for obvious signs, trained to move with awareness instead of reaction. And like any form of refinement, it happens through repetition. Small moments, quiet interactions, encounters that seem ordinary until you step back and see how often they occur at the exact points where something within you is changing. Still, what matters most is not the pattern itself, but how you begin to respond to it. Because once you see it, you can no longer treat it as background noise. You begin to pause when an animal appears. You begin to ask yourself what is happening within you at that exact moment. You begin to listen not to the animal, but to the space it entered. And from there, the message deepens. Because these encounters are not just about timing, they are about reflection. And once that reflection becomes clear, something even more revealing begins to unfold. Two of Wands reversed moves quietly through this moment, like a hand that hesitates at the edge of a path, sensing direction but not fully stepping into it yet. Because what animals are showing you now is not just where you are, but where you are holding back. There are moments when an animal approaches you with ease, and everything feels aligned, calm, natural. But there are also moments when something feels slightly off. Not wrong, just incomplete. A dog that pauses before coming closer. A cat that watches you instead of settling. A bird that arrives, but leaves more quickly than expected. These are not rejections. They are signals. Signals that something within you is not fully decided, not fully anchored, not fully claimed. Because while you have begun to release old patterns, there are still places where you stand between directions. Part of you has already moved forward. Another part is still looking back. And animals in their instinctive clarity feel that split immediately. They don't interpret it. They don't judge it. They simply respond to it. Which means their hesitation is not about your worth. It is about your alignment. And that is where the message deepens. You are being shown the exact places where your energy is divided. Where your intention says one thing, but your internal state has not fully followed. Maybe you've made a decision in your mind, but your body is still adjusting. Maybe you've let something go, but a part of you is still attached to what it once gave you. Maybe you are stepping into something new, but not yet trusting that you can remain there without retreating. That in-between space, animals feel it immediately, and they respond with distance or pause or quiet observation. Not to push you away, but to reflect that something within you is not fully settled yet. But the story does not end with hesitation, because this is not about staying in that divided space. It is about becoming aware of it so you can move through it. And animals in their simplicity offer you a kind of guidance that does not overwhelm you with answers. They simply show you where the inconsistency lives, so that you can feel it for yourself. And once you feel it, something begins to shift. You start to notice where you are half present, where you are holding back your full expression, where you are gating for certainty before allowing yourself to fully step forward. And that awareness begins to close the gap, slowly, naturally, without force, because alignment is not something you create through pressure. It is something you allow by being honest with where you are. Still, what matters most is what happens when that honesty deepens. Because once you begin to stand fully in one direction without splitting yourself between past and future, the way the world responds to you changes again. And from there, the message evolves beyond hesitation into something much clearer, much more grounded, and impossible to overlook. 9 of Swords steps into this space like a shadow cast in the middle of the night, not to frighten you, but to illuminate what has been circling your mind when everything else goes silent. Because there are moments, especially recently, where your energy is not calm or divided, but heavy, not outwardly, not in a way others would easily notice, but internally, something begins to tighten, thoughts looping, questions repeating, old worries resurfacing at the edges of your awareness when you least expect them. And in those moments, something interesting happens with animals. They don't always come closer. Sometimes they withdraw, not out of rejection, but out of sensitivity to the density of what you're carrying in that moment. A pet that usually rests beside you may choose a nearby space instead, staying close but not touching. A dog that is normally playful may become quieter, slower, as if adjusting its presence to something unspoken. Even birds usually drawn to your stillness may pass through more quickly, not lingering in the same way. This is not distance, it is attunement, because animals do not push into spaces that are already overwhelmed. They adjust, they give room, they match the energy without trying to override it. And what they are responding to here is not your identity, but your internal weight, the thoughts you haven't released yet, the fears you haven't spoken out loud, the pressure you carry quietly, believing you need to hold it together on your own. That weight changes the field around you, not permanently, not as a flaw, but as a temporary state that even the most sensitive creatures can feel. But the story does not end with that heaviness, because this is not about being stuck in those moments. It is about recognizing them without turning away, because the more you resist those internal cycles, the tighter they become. And the more they tighten, the more your energy contracts, becoming harder for anything, including yourself, to move through freely. Animals, in their quiet wisdom, do something different. They don't fight the moment. They don't try to fix it. They simply adjust their presence and wait. And in doing so, they show you something you may not have fully learned yet, that not every internal storm needs to be solved immediately. Some simply need to be acknowledged and allowed to pass. Still, what matters most is what happens when you begin to meet those moments differently. When you stop tightening against your own thoughts. When you allow space instead of pressure. When you sit even briefly without trying to escape what you feel. Because the moment that shift begins, your energy changes again, and animals feel that immediately. They return closer. They settle again. They rest without hesitation. Not because the thoughts are gone, but because the resistance to them has softened. And once that softness returns, something even more grounded begins to form. A stability that is not dependent on constant control, but on quiet acceptance. And from there, the message moves into its deepest layer yet. Not about what you feel, but about what you are becoming through all of it. Temperance arrives here like a quiet current, beneath everything. Not dramatic, not forceful, but steady, like water finding its level without needing to be pushed. Because after the heaviness, after the release, after the hesitation, and the quiet unraveling, something begins to settle within you. Not perfectly, not all at once, but noticeably, There are moments now where your energy feels balanced in a way it didn't before. Not because everything around you has changed, but because something inside you is no longer swinging between extremes. You are not tightening as quickly. You are not reacting as sharply. You are not collapsing under your own thoughts the way you once did. And animals feel that shift immediately. They don't approach you the same way they did when you were releasing. They don't hesitate the way they did when you were divided. Now they flow toward you. A dog doesn't just come close, it stays longer. Its body relaxes fully, as if it has entered a space where it doesn't need to stay alert. A cat doesn't just observe, it settles deeply, stretching out without tension, trusting the stillness around you completely. Even birds once cautious begin to linger with a kind of quiet curiosity, no longer measuring you but sharing space with you. Because what they are responding to now is coherence, a kind of internal harmony where your thoughts, your emotions, and your presence are no longer pulling in different directions. And that harmony creates something rare, a space where nothing needs to defend itself. But the story does not end with calm, because true balance is not just about peace. It is about integration. There are still parts of you that carry intensity. There are still moments where old patterns flicker at the edges. There are still waves that rise unexpectedly, but now they move through you instead of taking over you. And that changes how you are experienced. Animals don't just feel your calm, they feel your ability to return to it. That is what builds trust. Not perfection, not constant stillness, but the reliability of your energy finding its way back to center. And in that reliability, something deeper forms. A kind of quiet authority. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that stabilizes everything around it without needing to announce itself. Still, what matters most is what this allows you to become aware of. Because once you experience that level of balance, even briefly you begin to recognize when you drift away from it. You notice when your thoughts begin to tighten again. You notice when your energy becomes scattered. You notice when you start to lean too far into control or too far into avoidance. And that awareness becomes your anchor. Animals in their own way continue to reflect this back to you. They settle when you are centered. They adjust when you drift. They return when you return. And through that ongoing exchange, you begin to understand something that cannot be taught directly. Balance is not something you achieve once. It is something you practice, moment by moment, breath by breath. And the more you practice it, the more your presence becomes something others, especially the most instinctive forms of life, naturally trust. And once that trust becomes consistent, the final layer of this message begins to reveal itself. 7 of Swords steps into this final layer, like a shadow that no longer has a place to conceal itself, moving at the edge of awareness, where truth and illusion begin to separate. Because as your energy becomes more balanced, more grounded, more internally aligned, your sensitivity doesn't disappear. It refines. And animals respond to that refinement in a very specific way. They begin to react not just to you, but to everything around you. A dog that suddenly stiffens when someone approaches, even if that person seems harmless on the surface. A cat that divides a certain space in your home as if something about it no longer feels right. Birds that shift direction, hesitate, or scatter in moments that don't make logical sense. These are not random disturbances. They are responses to subtle inconsistencies in the environment around you. Because animals, especially when they trust your energy, begin to use it as a reference point. They feel your alignment, and then they notice what doesn't match it, which means their reactions now are not only about your internal state. They are about what enters your space, what lingers near you, what carries tension, imbalance, or something unspoken beneath the surface. And this is where your awareness deepens again. Because you begin to notice patterns that once went ignored. You start to feel when something is off, even if you can't immediately explain why. You start to sense when a situation doesn't sit right in your body, even if your mind tries to rationalize it. You begin to trust the quiet signals, not just from animals, but from yourself. But the story does not end with perception, because heightened awareness carries a responsibility that cannot be avoided once it is felt. You are no longer able to move blindly through environments that don't align with you. You are no longer able to ignore the subtle discomfort that arises when something isn't right. And animals reinforce that awareness by reacting before you fully process it. They don't analyze, they respond. And their response becomes a kind of early signal, a reflection of something your conscious mind has not yet caught up to. Still, what matters most is how you choose to engage with that awareness, because it is not meant to make you fearful. It is meant to make you clear about what you allow into your space, clear about what you remain connected to, clear about what you instinctively feel even before you can explain it. And as that clarity strengthens, something powerful begins to take shape. A quiet discernment, the ability to move through the world not just with openness, but with precision, not closing yourself off, but no longer letting everything in. And once that discernment stabilizes, the message reaches its final truth, not about animals alone, but about what your presence has become. Ace of Cups reversed rises gently, here not as absence, but as a reminder that what you carry must be allowed to flow, not held too tightly, not contained to the point where it begins to overflow inward instead of outward. Because after everything you have felt released, questioned, and balanced, your presence has become something unmistakable, not loud, not performative, but deeply felt. Animals are no longer just reacting to shifts within you. They are responding to the baseline you now carry, a quiet emotional field, one that is open but not unguarded, sensitive but not overwhelmed, clear but not rigid. And yet, there is one final refinement, because even in your growth there are moments where you begin to close inward again, not out of fear, but out of habit. Moments where you hold your feelings instead of letting them move. Moments where you contain your emotional current instead of allowing it to circulate naturally. And animals feel that immediately, not as danger, but as interruption. A dog that once rested fully may shift slightly, sensing the subtle tightening. A cat that once melted into your presence may reposition, adjusting to the change in flow. Even the air around you feels different when your emotional energy turns inward instead of outward. Which means the final lesson is not about becoming something new. It is about allowing what you already are to move freely. Because your sensitivity, your awareness, your presence, these are not meant to be controlled. They are meant to be expressed, lived, breathed through. And the more you allow that flow, the more your presence becomes something that does not just attract or reflect, but nourishes. Still, what matters most is what you understand now. Animals were never reacting to you randomly. They were responding to truth, to shifts, to tension and release, to clarity and confusion, to alignment and division. They have been walking beside you not to lead you, but to show you moment by moment what is happening within you before you fully see it yourself. And now, you see it. You feel when you are open. You feel when you are closed. You feel when you are grounded. You feel when something is off. That awareness is the real change. Not the animals, not the encounters. You. Because your presence has become readable, clear, alive. And in that clarity, something quiet but powerful settles in. You no longer need confirmation the way you once did. You no longer need to question every reaction, every moment, every encounter. You understand the language now, not in words, but in feeling. And that changes how you move forward. with less doubt, less resistance, more trust in what you sense even when it cannot be explained, because you have lived it. You have seen how the world, especially the most instinctive parts of it, responds when you are aligned and when you are not. And now, you carry that knowing with you, quietly, naturally, without needing to prove it. Which means the truth is simple. You are not being followed. You are not being singled out. You are being recognized. And the more you allow yourself to remain open, balanced, and aware, the more that recognition will continue not just from animals, but from everything that responds to what is real. And as that recognition settles, not as something you chase, but something you quietly carry, the noise of needing to understand everything begins to soften. You no longer need to analyze every glance, every moment, every encounter, because something deeper has already confirmed what you were searching for. Chosen one. The world has been speaking to you in a language you were always meant to remember. Not through words, not through explanations, but through presence, through stillness, through the way life itself leans toward you when you are aligned. And maybe now you see it more clearly. The dog that rested at your feet when your heart felt too heavy. The cat that stayed close when you said nothing at all. The bird that paused just long enough for you to feel that quiet connection. They were never accidents. They were moments of reflection. Moments where life met you exactly where you were. And now you don't need to chase those moments anymore. You don't need to question if they mean something. You simply notice. You allow. You receive. Because what you carry now is not something you have to prove. It is something you live. A calm that returns even after it's shaken. A sensitivity that doesn't overwhelm you the way it once did. An awareness that doesn't confuse you, but guides you quietly from within. And as you move forward, you may begin to notice something else. It's not just animals anymore. It's people softening around you. It's spaces feeling different when you enter them. It's moments aligning without force. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. So take this with you not as a belief, but as something you've already experienced. When something approaches you with trust, honor it. When something hesitates, listen to it. When something feels off, respect it. Because your awareness is no longer guessing. It is recognizing. And that recognition is your quiet compass now. You don't need to rush. You don't need to force clarity. You are already moving in rhythm with something deeper than logic can explain. So stay present, stay open, stay honest with what you feel. Because the more you do, the more life in all its forms will continue to meet you there.